evening to all of us, and we will see that what basically constitutes the civil services mains answer writing. We'll go through the syllabus, and we will also look into the different directives. What basically goes into answer writing? What are the other things that are basically necessary in order to fetch good marks? Uh, if we see that in the civil services mains examination, prelims is just basically the qualifying examination, right? You get a chance to write the mains. It The prelims marks will not be able to decide your rank. Only thing that will decide your rank will be the mains marks, including the interviews. But the effect of interviews can be significantly reduced by scoring very high marks in the interviews. So in the interview stage, he got very less marks. I guess around 140s, in the range of 140s, and it was the lowest in the top 10. But despite of that, because of having a very good marks in the mains examination, he was able to get a, a single digit rank, right? So we will see why this thing and how can we improve and how can we get good marks. What are the basic things that goes into answer writing, right? So I'll start with that. On that note, we'll start that. And right. So what basically are the requirements of the mains answer writing, right? So I'll go that this content, this thing is the main requirement. Content. Without content, people say, if you go in the market, in the civil services market, they will say, okay, the presentation is there, structure is there. No doubt they are important, but they alone will not fetch you marks. It's like having the accessories but without having the king. In the chess, if you get checkmated, right? If the kings get checkmated, you get defeated. So was the case in the ancient wars. If the kings get defeated, you get defeated. Without content, I will repeat again and again, you need to have a very good content. And contents come uh, from reading good books, the basic reference books, which you get to make the notes out of it. You need to read at least one newspaper, one national newspaper. I'll not recommend a local newspaper, but a national newspaper, something like Hindu or Indian Express. And if you can couple it with some news of the Mint, uh, and Financial Express, if you can couple it for the GS paper 3, but one of which is coupled by another newspaper as a supplementary source, you can get a very good content out of it. And by reading some government recommendations, government reports like ARC reports, or in the sense of environment, like down to earth, Yojana, Kurukshetra, these are the things where you can get the content, and it applies to every paper. For essay also, essay for your GS paper 4. Sorry, you can't erase on this one. GS paper 4. You can get the examples from this Yojana, Kurukshetra, also from the newspaper. These are the source. These are the sources. Sources are, I'll write that, the reference book, which is supplemented by this Yojana, Kurukshetra newspaper. This is very important. This is from where you get your examples. Suppose there is a drought condition, right? And a question comes in GS paper 1. You can see that if you see the last year papers from 2013 to 2020, this year also, right? So you can see that undoubtedly there is a question of some natural hazard. So drought is there, urban flooding is there. In urban flooding, you can get the example, the recent floods that happened in Chennai, right? So you can always supplement and always provide an answer. And these examples are very much important in the directives, right? Directives can come like illustrate. So what happens that if your directive has come that illustrate, you have to give the examples. And from where you will get the examples? From the newspaper, what is happening in the current year, maybe 1 or 2 years, something like that. And now that you have the king, the content, you have the content, but a content which is not properly presented, you will get defeated because it will not be noticed. Suppose you have written an example, that floods happened, this something about the floods, or even a something, a positive attitude that certain constable has rescued a certain number of people from who are getting washed away in the floods. So it shows his attitude, his professionalism. Professional ethics goes into that one. So these are the accessories. These are the content, but it has to be presented in a proper manner. If you are not able to show your content, and by mistake, by God forbid, that examiner misses your point, so you have written got missed out because there are number of copies. 10,000 students write means 10,000 multiplied by 4 equal to 40,000. 40,000 copies has to be evaluated, right? And within a period of 2 months. So presentation is very important. It's very important, but not the most important thing. Most important is the content. Then comes the presentation. And you have to structure it properly. Without what I mean by the structuring is that introduction, body, and conclusion. These are the basic ingredients of an answer. But what happens that in the body itself, you need to arrange your argument in a proper manner, that there is a natural flow in it. In paper 4, it is very important. Same goes in the essay. If the structure is not proper, introduction, body, and conclusion, most of the students will write. But what happens if in the essay paper, you write your economic dimensions or something ecological dimension as the first point, right? As the first point. And if you are not writing the historical perspective out of it, and you write the historical perspective in third or fourth point, automatically your sequence will automatically get distorted. So it will not give a very good image of you, how you are thinking, your sequential thinking to the examiner. And because of that, you will lose 1 or 2 marks in the answer, or maybe 5 to 10 marks in the essay. So these three are the ingredients of writing a good answer, and so that the examiner understands what you are thinking, what is your chronological way of thinking. It is very important for these things, for the answers and the essays. So you need to be very much aware of all these things. You can write it down, or if you want to take it, you can write it down. Now we go into the what more is required. So it is like a war, right? I've always said CSE is not a battle, it is a war, because there are 3 stages. Battle is only a 1 stage. You go and you win, but it's a 3 stage. It's a long-term war. And sometimes people take more than 1 attempt, more than 2 attempts. Even sometimes people get selected in the 4th or 5th attempt. But eventually, what is the outcome? They get selected, right? Right. So this is very much important, that you need to know what you are fighting for, what you are fighting. So if you are not aware of the rules of the game, you are definitely bound to lose the game. So for that, knowing the game, you should be very much aware that what are the dimensions of it, with what we need to fight, right? For that, you need to be very much aware of the syllabus of paper 1. I'm talking about the GS paper 1, right? So everyone please be noted that these are the GS paper I'm talking about. And what is the problem in the GS paper 4? Most of the students are afraid that what we need to write. So, I was evaluating copies of some students, but I have noticed that if the question comes of caste discrimination, they are not talking about the human rights, that there is a violation of human rights. It's a personal the ethical terminologies, what basically constitutes the paper 4. So you need to be very much thorough with that. What is the syllabus? Are the ingredients of the syllabus? If you want to environmental ethics, so you need to be very much aware of it, and you don't have to write the issues of paper 3. If you see in the paper 3, there is a certain section called as environment biodiversity. You don't have to bring that part into here. You can take some of it, but whole of it you don't have to bring and substitute in paper 4. It will not help you to fetch a very good marks. So you need to be very much aware of these things. You can only be get aware of these things when you know the syllabus of paper 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll suggest that the student, you need to very much aware. You need to learn this, what basically constitutes the syllabus of it. Or what you can do, you can take a printout of it and then stick it on your walls, so that you are aware on a daily basis. Okay, if you are reading the newspaper, you can take it what is important from that. and make notes out of it, right? So now we'll go into the next slide, what basically is required. Okay, so now you know that I have the syllabus, I have the reference book also. So what you need to do for writing, right? You have to only by writing you will be able to get the marks. If you don't write, you won't be able to get good marks, right? So for writing the answer, you need to read the question very thoroughly, very thoroughly. Read it twice, thrice. If you are writing it for the first time or the second time, you need to very much thorough with the demand of the question. You need to identify the keywords of the question. I'll come to the example, then you will be able to identify what I mean by the demand of the question. Identifying the keywords, demand. And what happens that in UPSC, they don't ask a single question. There are many parts and subparts associated with it. And what happens that in because you have to answer 20 questions in a limited time manner. So what happens that students only answer one part or two part. They don't answer the question holistically. They miss out from one part or second part. And because of that, this thing will not be, because you won't be able to see the copies, right? Evaluated copies. So, and when the result come, when the marks come, and they won't be able to identify in which section, in which part they have missed out this thing. And this thing get repeated attempt after attempt. Even in the some of the coaching institutes, the evaluation is so poor that they won't be pinpointing your this mistake. I'm very much clear in this aspect. So you need to answer all the parts and the subparts of the question. You need to read the question very thoroughly, twice or thrice. Once you are very comfortable, then in your mental map, you can frame the question and then answer it. Take some time, maybe a minute or something, because if within 10 to 12 minutes, you have to answer it. You have to frame it and then answer it, right? And then you have to see what are the directives, in which direction you have to run. If you are not very much thorough with the directives, in which direction you have to run, you will easily miss the target. So directives, we'll see what are the directives and what how we can solve according to the directives, right? Okay, we'll go to the example, right? I was talking about this thing, right? This thing, the identifying the keywords, demand of the question, parts and subparts directive. In this example, this is a question of GS paper 2 2014. This is if you can check it on your mobile or laptop or something. This is the exact question of 2014. So you can easily see how big is the question. This is, I guess, of 12 and a half marks. At that time, it used to come of 12 and a half marks, 12.5 marks. And it was third or fourth question. So I'll give you everyone 1 or 2 minutes to read it and understand it, what basically it is asking. I guess everyone would have read by now, right? So okay, let's see it part by part. Though the federal principle is dominant in our constitution, and that principle is one of its basic features, right? This becomes one part of it. But it is equally true that federalism under Indian constitution leans in the favor of a strong center. This becomes a second part of it. A feature that militates against the concept of strong federalism. This becomes a third part of it. So you have to, and then the directive is discussed, right? We will see what basically this discuss means. But you have to identify what are the parts and the subparts. If you read it in a single in a single breath, then you won't be able to answer it. Okay, this is what it says, but what we have to write, you won't be able to get it, right? But a person who is well thorough with the syllabus and then identifying the demand of the question and the keywords will be able to solve it in a very simple way, because the question in itself is the underlying gravity, the center of mass. I use the physical terminology, the physical terminology from the physics. Center of mass, the gravity of it is very simple. It's asking that, saying that there are friction points between the center and the states. There are certain points which are called as division of power. The division of power becomes the federal principle. There is a division of power and responsibilities. In India, we have a three-tier government. One is at the center, other is at the states, third is the PRI or the urban bodies, urban local bodies, right? The center, states, and the PRI. Earlier, before 1991, there was a two tier. Generally, we consider it's a two tier, but if we say it technically, it's a three tier government. So we have to identify automatically if there is a division of power, there will be some friction point, there will be some overlapping of it, and there is this tension area become troublesome over a period of time. If you see it in this recently, there is a delay in disbursing the GST cess between the center and the states, and sometimes there is a problem of overusing security forces in the name of maintaining law and order. Thirdly is the use of CBI. Fourthly is the control of automatically, if you see the all India services, there are three all India services, right? One is the IAS, second is Indian Police Services, third is Indian Forest Services. It is written as IFOS or IFS. There are three, right? And the controlling authority is DOPT, Department of Personnel and Training, right? It comes under the union government. That is the cadre controlling authority. For this one is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, right? This is 12.5. So these are the certain friction points, and also there because appointment of the governor, auditing by the CAG, Controller and Auditor General. These are the friction points. There are more. I have solved this question, not wholly, but to give an idea how you have to attempt it. Let's go to the next slide. You have to see. You have to identify the keywords. And the keywords are these are the keywords, right? Federal principle, basic features, strong center, right? And a strong federalism. Now, by how you will frame your answer. What are the sequential points? How you will do it? You have to explain what basically is what you understand by federalism. What basically is the federal structure, and then you have to show to the examiner that okay, these I have defined, and what are the examples of it. So the examples of the first example is the Rajya Sabha, where there is a representation of the states, right? Each state has particular number of representatives, right? And they send these representatives in the upper house, that is the Rajya Sabha. Second is the Interstate Council. Third is the Niti Aayog, that is the not constitutional but an executive decision, where you can see the governing council has the representation from the not representation but CMs of the states are a part of it, the governing councils, and they can put their viewpoint, their issues while for policy formulations. Niti Aayog is also there. And then within the question, right, you have to highlight what basically you understand by the strong center. So strong center is the appointment of governor, issues associated with the appointment of governor, the appointment, and then they are working. It becomes a friction point between the and the territories which have the legislative assembly, because these issues comes up when there is a difference in the political parties at the center and at the state. If they are of the same political party, their agenda is the same, right? The chances of friction are minimal. But when there is opposition, when the political parties are different, then this becomes a very troublesome issue. All India states working, all India services working, GST Council, and then you have to tell about what are the federal picture, where there is a division of power, right? And then, since I told you, introduction, body, and conclusion. These are the body and the soul of an answer. If many students miss out this conclusion, this is very important. It gives the closure, right? It gives a closure to your answer. Okay, you have well packed it, and then now you have to put it in envelope and then give it to the examiner, right? So this is very important. If in a 15 marks question, this becomes very much important. And this question, if it comes supposedly in the next year, in 2021, this will come in a 15 marks because it's a lengthy answer. So you have to write it write this conclusion. It is very much important. And what we have to, many students ask me that, sir, what we need to write in this in conclusion. You have to put a way forward. You can give some recommendation of some committee, right? ARC recommendations are there. What are the recommendation of National Commission for Review of the Constitution? Something like that. Why there is a need for federal structure? Some committee was formed, right, long time back, and what it recommended. Why there is a need for federal structure? And for that, you need to have a. Why have you can only write these committees only when you have good content. Content is very. You need to diversify your content. So these basically are comes from this thing will come from the content, and then this the way it is presented, it becomes the part of your structure. This thing, the way it is presented. See, there is a sequence right over there. The federalism, you have to first present the federalism, then you have to put up what basically constitute the strong center, what basically constitute the federal feature. Now the conclusion. This is what is meant by structure, and the arrangement of your argument within this one, right? The appointment of governor. This is the internal arrangement, right? Now I'll go to the this one, this thing, directive. In discuss, right? Discuss what basically is that you have to put forward both positives and the negatives, the pros and the cons, right? We have put forward this the strong center. At the same time, we also need why there is a need of a strong states, right? You have to show the both sides, and then you have to give the example to substantiate your argument. Examples are very important. It shows your awareness. In university examinations, you can go away and get the same marks if you write the example or you don't write the example. But in UPSC, because what basically is the requirement of an administrator, he should be aware of what is happening around him. You won't get everything which is written or in the files. You have to be aware of your surroundings. So that shows your that part of your mind, right? So examples are very much important. So you have to illustrate your pros and the cons. But of one side, you have to suppose you have to why there is a need of a strong center for the security, for international relations. There is a need of it. The foreign policy, it becomes a part of the union list, right? At the same time, you have to show why there is a need because some issues of local nature. Suppose agriculture, it needs to be there in the state list because it directly impacts the common man, right? We'll see more examples, right? This one is from the GS paper 1. I guess it was in 2015, and it was a 15-marked question. So I'll give you more time to read and understand and what I have shown before, right? Just in this question, how you can do it, right? So read it. It was in 2015. Okay, I guess everyone would have read it. So the question goes that explain the factors responsible for the origin of the ocean currents, right? This becomes the first part, right? This becomes the first part. And then how do you influence regional climates, fishing, navigation, right? So if we goes on by what was the earlier approach in the approach in the first question, we'll use the same approach, right? Over here. So we'll identify the keyword, what are the factors responsible for the origin of ocean currents. And the regional climate, fishing, and it is also a keyword because it's a part of the demand of the question. Now, first demand, you have to fulfill this demand, and then you have to fulfill this demand also, right? The regional climate, fishing, and navigation. What basically happens is that the students, right? Because you are so much time constrained in 3 hours, you have to write 20 questions, almost around 3,000 words. And the demand of 3,000 words goes on changing with every question. One question is of the society, other question is of the geography, third question is of art and culture, right? So your mind is so much compressed into that situation. You have to just like you are writing mechanically, but at the same time, because we are human beings, you also apply your mind. So you have to answer these subparts also. These are climate. How does they influence the ocean currents impact the regional climate? Fishing the first subpart, that is, explain the factor responsible for the origin of the ocean currents, right? So we will define what basically is the ocean current. Many students, right? I guess since I have evaluated a number of copies, and what I have seen is that out of 30, out of what I'll say 50 students, 40 students will miss this part, deep ocean current. So you need to be very much thorough with your content. It depends upon you that how much deep you want to go and how much you want to diversify, right? You have to define it, and then you have to tell, okay, these are the two types of ocean current. One is the surface ocean current, and other is the deep ocean current. And you have to draw the diagram of the world currents. So just fine, right? First, you have to draw this diagram, this kind of a diagram, not exactly same, but something like, right, this thing, this way. You can draw this way, a small diagram, right? This is your answer sheet. This is the answer sheet, right? You can define over here. You got this much space. In 15 marker, generally you get 3 pages, 1 page, second page, and the third page, right? In this small space, there is a margin here, top margin. In this much space, you can draw it roughly, and then you can say this is the Gulf Stream, right? This goes the Delta of the Gulf Stream. This goes the Canary Current, North Atlantic. It goes deep inside here, and then it is little bit difficult, and then so this way it goes and completes it. That's how, and then you can say this is the DOC, North Atlantic, right? You have to draw it this way, something like this way, and then in a box you can draw it, and then you have to name it. Many students don't draw the diagram, and in geography questions you have to draw a diagram. It becomes a part of your presentation. It shows that you are aware of the spatial dimensions where things are located, right? It will give you an advantage of 1 marks. Definitely it will give you an advantage if the person who has not drawn but written the same content as yours, he will get around 7 marks, right? 7 out of 15. But if you have drawn this diagram and then labeled not all the ocean current, but some ocean current, you are bound to get 8.5 marks out of 15. And suppose that you are drawing your diagram and that presentation is good. This is the advantage of 1.5 marks over 6 marks, right? It goes 9 marks. Suppose there are 6 questions. And if you do it, your presentation is good, your diagram making is good, you're aware of the names, what is required over there, you can automatically get an edge of this much marks. And this is of only, I'm talking about GS paper 1. There is something called as international relation in paper 2, right? Is something called as security in paper 3, right? GS paper 3. You can draw the diagram. You can also draw the diagram in what I can say. That becomes a part of the presentation in any of the question. Something like you can draw some like these things, right? These things, and then this way. Many students write it. The one who write it, they will be able to identify what I'm talking about. This one. I like to call this as a spider, and then you can say, okay, these are the factors which is responsible for it. Or in the security question, or in the GS paper 2, something related to the polity. You can easily do it. Attempt the first part of it. Yeah, we have done it, right? We have done it. Factors responsible for the origin. See, I was talking about the factor responsible. So what you can do is this one, the factors responsible. Factors responsible. And then you can say wind, gravity, water properties, and then identify this one, this way. This way, it becomes a part of your presentation. It is also a part of, it is also something called as easy to catch the glaze of that examiner. None of your point will be missed, right? It is it is very important. The presentation, I'm emphasizing on it because your point should not be missed by the examiner. And these are the professors generally who are near to the retirement, right? I'm talking about you people must be getting an idea what I mean by it. And if you have met your professors, you know their attitude, right? Let's not go into that one. So these things: wind, gravity, water properties, ocean bottom relief. This way you can represent it and present it your answer to the examiner, and definitely you will get very good marks. Now you have to go to the second part of the question: how they influences. Sometimes the students write climate and vegetation, they will forget about navigation. Sometimes they write first two and miss the third part. So you need to read your question very thoroughly, very thoroughly, and you need to remember what you have to write. Right? This navigation, how does they impact the climate? How does they impact the temperature? How does they impact the precipitation? And you have to illustrate, right? This thing, like if you see this Canary current, it's a cold current. Same goes with the Peruvian current, the Humboldt current, which goes on the western side of the this South American continent, right? This one. This is the Peruvian current. It's a cold current. Here is the Atacama Desert. So it creates aridity, promotes desiccation. Right? That's how you have to. And then by giving the example of this Peruvian current, you're illustrating your point. That's what I meant with this key. You have to illustrate your point. And then you have to provide the conclusion. You can add some reports, right? Add reports, IPCC reports. You can add, okay, because of climate change, this is happening over here. Some UN reports. And then you have to just drop the name of it and say, okay, this person is saying this much. Many people write this big conclusion. Suppose this is a paper, right? This big conclusion. No need of it. More than a half of a page. Just 15, 20, I will not say 15, 20, but 30 words. 30, 35 words. This is sufficient. This is sufficient for your conclusion. It provides the closure. And if you have done all these things, drawn all these maps, defined, provided the example, you will get 60% of the mark in that particular question. Out of 15, you will automatically get 9. 8.5 is the minimum guaranteed. 9, if the examiner is in the good mood, he will give you the 9 marks. Because in 20 out of 20 questions, you would be knowing around 12 to 13 questions very well. A person who has prepared well. I'm not talking about all of the person. I'm talking about the persons who have taken this examination very seriously and made good notes. He has done all the hard work, right? What goes beneath for getting selected. And in the right direction. Doing hard work in the right direction under a proper guidance is very, very important. Because if your hard work is not channelized in the right direction, it is doomed to fail. And you won't be able to get it what went wrong, attempt after attempt. So all these things, what I'm telling you is because of my experience, right? So you, as much as you can extract out of me, I can tell you, and then I'm telling you because I have told someone this thing that you have to do it, and then the person came again back with the mistakes that I'm telling that, okay, you don't have to commit this mistake. And when I'm evaluating the copy, the person has committed the same mistakes again. You have to imbibe these things, what I'm telling. And it does not become a fluke shot. It becomes a part of your habit. You internalize that thing. If you write automatically, the flow is natural. That flow becomes natural, a part of your habit. Right? You have to very much thorough what I'm telling about. Now we'll see the GS paper 3, right? GS paper 3, this example. I'll give you 1.5 minutes to read this one.